Welcome to the Amber Data Derivatives podcast. I'm here with Mario Lozada. He is the co-founder and the CEO of PowerTrade, a crypto options exchange. Mario, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's fantastic to connect here on
Great.
the podcast. I was wondering, maybe we could start off with a little bit about your background before co-founding PowerTrade and being the CEO of PowerTrade. What were you doing in your career previous to this?
Yeah, my background. So I go back maybe 20 years ago. I started with in banking with Merrill Lynch, based in Tokyo. I was the CTO for the fixed income business
Mm,
at Merrill. I was with them for about 10, 12 years. And then I moved to Credit Suisse, where I was the CTO as well for the fixed income business for the Asia region up until 2012, 13. At that time, I got into crypto and I founded an exchange, one of the earliest exchanges in Japan. I was based in Japan at the time, called Coin, which then became Liquid.com. I was with Liquid. I was a founder, CEO for some time. I was with Liquid for about 6 years, up until 2020. Then I left Liquid and I founded PowerTrade. Our focus, as you may or may not know, is crypto options. We spent the last 2 years up until a few months ago building the platform. And we officially started onboarding clients in July of this year. So that's
that
very brief, my background.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Before
Yeah.
jumping on to PowerTrade, I wonder if we could just dig into your background just a little bit more. So you were the CTO at Merrill and Credit Suisse on a fixed income desk. Now, obviously, fixed income has a lot of unique instruments. So did you
Yes.
build the trading infrastructure for connecting all the different fixed income products? Was that sort of the role?
That's correct. So I was CTO for Asia in charge of what they call FICC, which basically stands for fixed income currencies and commodities, on the front office, which is all the trading systems, risk management, and sales systems, all the systems that the traders use for pricing, risk management, and so on. Yeah.
That's super interesting. So that's really the perfect
Yes.
background for launching an exchange. So you mentioned before PowerTrade, you created Coin and it was called Liquid. Was that the second exchange?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So Coin was the name originally of the
Hmm.
of the of the exchange, and they later renamed to Liquid. I think 4 years later. And by the way, Liquid was acquired by FTX earlier this
Wow.
year. So,
Wow.
so
Amazing.
yeah, but I actually left Liquid 2 years, I think, yeah, back in 2020 to
And,
start PowerTrade. Yeah.
and so Liquid, I imagine, was a spot exchange that didn't do any derivatives, or is that?
When we started back in 2014, 13, it was originally a spot exchange. It was one of the first exchanges in the world, actually. It was right after the Mangox
Mm,
collapsed. You might remember that.
yeah.
It was right around the time when we launched in Japan. Our focus was the Japanese market because, from my experience, the Japanese market has one of the biggest forex trading communities and in the world,
Mm.
right? So we wanted to tap into the traders in Japan, with with the FX background, and that was quite. I would say it was quite successful at the time. So it was spot mainly, and then in 2015 we introduced kind of margin trading. It wasn't really perpetual trading, but it was very similar
Hmm.
to that. It was basically trading on margin, like CFDs kind of product. And again, we were like one of the first ones to do CFDs in the market, in the crypto markets. Unfortunately, Liquid was really focused in Japan. It was not really well known outside the Japanese market.
That
But at the highest point, we were doing about $500 million to $750 million in trading daily
wow.
over there. So it was like Japanese yen, Bitcoin currency kind of pair. Yeah.
Yeah, that That's fascinating. Can we maybe just touch on that a little bit more? So obviously Mt. Gox was in Japan as well. There's a big trading community in Japan. The dollar yen is one of the biggest FX pairs. The
Yes,
JGB
that's
market
right.
is the second biggest in the world. So the
Yes.
Japanese markets are very sophisticated. How is the crypto trading scene over there? Because obviously on the West we don't hear about it as much. I'm wondering if you have some insights.
It's really well developed. I mean, given the the amount of traders that there are, not just retail but also semi-retail and professionals, that's actually the main reason why we decided to focus on the Japanese market
Mm,
to begin with, at Liquid and Coin at that time. It was just natural for them to kind of move from trading Forex to trading Bitcoin versus JPY or
mm,
USD. So we gained traction very early, in the very early days. Our main competitor, Bitflyer, you may have
mm-hmm.
heard of Bitflyer before. It was just Bitflyer and us at that time. So we took over the market. Liquid Coin was probably like number one or number two exchange. Around 2015, 16, we got licensed from the Japanese FSA as well. So we're licensed, regulated exchange over there, which
Wow.
wasn't easy to get that. It took about a year, couple of years to get that, and a lot of resources to do that. But yeah.
So actually, one of the things that was really interesting, I know Sam Bankman-Fried had said that there was an arbitrage between sort of Asia markets and Western markets, and maybe we could touch on just kind of the infrastructure of building an exchange in crypto. How is that different from traditional finance? And since you ran an exchange, was there ever like price discrepancies that you've noticed between American exchanges or North American exchanges versus the Japanese spot markets?
Yes, I remember that there was quite a big difference. I would say about $1,000 at some point, quite significant. That if you knew how to take advantage of it,
Mm,
of course you could make a lot of money. But I do remember that quite clearly, at that time, and it was interesting to see that, as a foreigner living in Japan as well. Um, and For some reason, the Japanese traders would just push the price up, even though they knew that the price was lower outside Japan. And that obviously created a lot of flow and opportunities and
mm,
volumes, for the exchanges at the time. In terms of the infrastructure, the components, the building blocks for an exchange for crypto and TradFi are pretty much the same. There's a matching engine, there's a risk components, there's a
mm-hmm.
margin management components. But the one difference I would say is that in crypto, which is I think is maybe a big problem, and the reason why we are where we are with FTX and others is that in crypto you have exchanges custodying the funds as well,
Yeah,
which
right.
normally you don't see that in TradFi, right? So that would be one of the biggest differences, uh, which can be quite strange if you come from the TradFi world, right?
That's fascinating. And then,
Yeah.
so when you started creating PowerTrade, so obviously now you've created a crypto options exchange. Now, what sort of inspired the move from spot and margin to an options market? Obviously, I love the options market. I'm super excited for it.
Yeah.
But what was sort of your inspiration?
Yeah, so seeing coming from where I came from in TradFi, right, and seeing the trajectory of crypto, starting with spot markets in 2013, 14, then moving to margin, perpetuals, futures, I thought it was a natural kind of progression that we
Mm-hmm.
would see options eventually.
Mm-hmm.
When we started PowerTrade back in 2020, the options market was very small. The crypto options market, that is, was really small. I think it was about 0.25% of the whole crypto market. Um, and I believe at the time there's a huge opportunity. Even now, still believe there's a huge opportunity, because if you look at the equities and forex and non-crypto markets within finance, it is a complete opposite. Options markets are usually 8 times, maybe 10 times, or even 20 times the size of the underlying markets, like futures and spot. So if I we can safely assume that probably crypto will take the same path, and eventually that 0.25% will become bigger. I think now is more like 10 times bigger than it was 2 years ago, but it's still 2.5%. So there's a huge amount of growth coming up in the future. So we want to be able to be in a position to capture that growth. And that's probably the main reason why we, decided to build PowerTrade and focus on crypto options.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then when I look at other exchanges such as Deribit, they have basically future options and or coin margined. Now, does PowerTrade have the same sort of setup, or is it different?
No, we have the same, right? So we have the whole range of markets within PowerTrade. It's just that our focus has always been options, but we do have perpetuals, we have futures, we have the spot markets, and the reason why we need that is if you're an options trader, in particular if you're an institutional options trader, you want to have access to futures markets in order to hedge or in order to do more sophisticated trading strategies across. So and on top of that, we provide portfolio margin, which is not really you can't easily find it in other exchanges. It is not really easy to implement. So there's portfolio margin, there's multi-collateral, which means you can put it in Bitcoin, ETH, or USDC, and you can trade any market you want with that. And our options are USD cash settled, right? As opposed to in Derivs, where they're actually settled in the underlying asset, ETH or BTC, which that can cause some issues, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now, do you offer markets on Bitcoin and ETH only, or is there some altcoins that you also offer?
We started with Bitcoin and ETH, but we've seen a lot of interest recently from institutional clients that want to trade like some of the altcoins like XRP or even BNB or options, right? So we're looking into introducing altcoin options sometime in Q1 next year.
Fantastic. And now I know a lot of OTC desks such as Genesis Trading or Galaxy Digital or GSR, they provide markets OTC and then they go on screens on exchanges to sort of lay off risk. Are you guys seeing that type of adoption as well? And are you planning to integrate with like Paradigm or any block trading partners?
We do have a block trading facility, which is RFQ, where you can come in and you can build your own structure. You can build like a straddles, triangles, iron condors in one go, and you can trade them as a block. The way it works is you come in, you basically build a structure, and we have a market maker on the back that will quote the entire structure for you. We have deep liquidity in these markets, in RFQ markets right now, as well as pretty good pricing, which is quite competitive with Paradigm and Derivs. So there's really no need for us to integrate with Derivs or Paradigm because we have the same features available and probably better liquidity and pricing that they can offer right now. Plus, we have the whole exchange behind it. We have, as I said, we have the multi-collateral USD cash settle, which they don't really have. So we came in, and when we started, we looked at the existing players, mainly Derivs at that time, and we looked at the challenges and the gaps that they had, and we tried to come in and improve the offering via PowerTrade.
Very cool. And now you are located in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh. Are you noticing a lot of sort of your market makers and your market participants coming from the Asia markets, or do you have adoptions from European markets and sort of all over the world?
We see them coming from everywhere, not just Asia, but Europe and other markets as well. They're from everywhere. Our focus, I don't know if I mentioned, but our focus since July has been on institutional clients. And we're seeing, it's pretty interesting because after the FTX collapse that we saw a few weeks ago, we're seeing an uptick in terms of interest in our offering right now. And the main reason is it's that we just integrated with Copper Clearloop.
Okay,
So
cool.
Copper Clearloop allows our clients to have an additional level of counterparty risk mitigation on their side, because we don't custody the funds. In that case, they place the funds with Copper Clearloop. We don't have access to the funds, and that's the way we want it. And there's a process whereby we settle with them every hour in our case, right? So it's from a counterparty risk perspective, a lot of the clients that we're talking to are looking for that level of peace of mind, I guess, and security when it comes to the funds. And as an exchange, and personally as well, we don't really want to be responsible for custodying user funds.
Mm-hmm.
We'd
Yeah.
rather work with the likes of Copper and Clearloop, so they can custody the funds. They're regulated in Europe. They have a significant amount of process in place, security and so on. So they take care of what they can do best, and we can focus on trading, matching, and some of the other risk management and margin management and that multilateral and that kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And talking about integrations, now obviously the DeFi options market is sort of this very young space, but I imagine at some point DeFi and CeFi might have some sort of integrations. Is that something that you guys have your eye on, and do you partner with some DeFi protocols as well?
We have a couple of partnerships in the works right now with some of them, but it's more it's not really on the DEX kind of side. It's more on the, they have these vaults and people stake their altcoins or ETH, and they want to hedge the risk. So in order to do that, we're offering services for them to, for example, they can buy puts on our exchange. We offer, attractive incentives for them in terms of fees for volume that they can use. So we're working on a couple of partnerships that will allow these kind of vaults to come in and hedge their risk. So you can keep your ETH there as long as you want. You can earn some interest on it. And at the same time, you come into PowerTrade and you hedge any downside price risk via put options in this case, or put spread or spreads, that kind of things.
Very, very cool. And obviously,
We,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. So on the other hand, we also have, we're looking at potentially decentralizing some of the services that we have. But when it comes to trade matching and risk management, in particular with options, you do need a certain level of technology availability to do that in terms of latency and that kind of things, which is not really available on the current ETH or Ethereum or any other protocols. So we're looking at a hybrid model whereby, not for institutions, but more for pro retail kind of clients and more retail, where you can keep control over your funds, but at the same time have access to the features that we offer.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
we're looking at kind of like a hybrid model to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really could see that
Yes.
sort of that type of integration being the standard going forward. That's really fascinating. So,
You get the best of both worlds in that case, right? You get the best of both worlds in the sense that you get to keep your own funds, right? Control over them, and you see they're there, right? And at the same time, you get the best of the CeFi, the centralized finance kind of matching engines and speed, and all the multi-collateral, all the features that we offer, which is not really easy to implement on DEX at this point in time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Speaking
Yeah.
of matching engines and sort of risk engines, so obviously with spot markets, it's a little bit easier to manage or calculate sort of risk and liquidation. Now, with options, you sort of have to have your internal surface and marks in case the market's very
Yes.
illiquid. How do you guys devise sort of your own surface? Is that something that you guys build in-house, or did you hire a third party? How does that work?
We started with third parties last year, but we eventually moved it in-house. It is a very key component for the exchange to have, and that kind of drove the decision to move it in-house early this year. But yeah, we do have everything like under our control, and We have the source code and everything. That's one reason why it actually took us 2 years to build everything that we needed to build, because the options product is not really a straightforward product when it comes to risk management, pricing, as you said. And on top of that, we have multiple collateral to deal with, which means you can actually open a position on a BTC option by having only ETH in your account, right? So you need to take into account all these different things. And yeah, so that, means that you have to spend a lot of time investing on building the platform, making sure it works and it runs properly. So it wasn't really an easy, straightforward kind of build out.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So
Yeah, yeah.
amber data derivatives, a lot of our customers are market makers. So if someone wants to make markets on PowerTrade, what are some high level considerations? Is there like a minimum amount of capital that they have to do? Is there a minimum amount of quoting? How does that process work? And is there sort of an incentive for someone to make markets on PowerTrade?
Yeah, there's no minimum amount of capital that we require. We can offer attractive incentives in terms of fees. We can also offer. We have a token. We have an exchange token as well. I know exchange tokens are not very popular right now, but we have it. We also offer incentives in terms of our own token. Low fees, very competitive fees. We also have. We're quite flexible in terms of integration. They can use the Fix protocol, or they can use WebSockets, or they can use REST API that we have. So we have 3 or 4 different kinds of APIs. We have co-location as well within our data centers in Singapore. Yeah, and we also, with the market makers that we've been working since July, not just market makers, but other high frequency traders, we were able to provide some of our resources internally, engineering resources, developers, to help them move faster in terms of developing and integrating with us. So we give package code to our clients. They can just run it and connect to the pricing models. And it's worked out really well so far.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then, so you mentioned that PowerTrade has a token, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering this wrong, but I think technically PowerTrade is a DAO, and Delphi Digital kind of helped create the tokenomics incentive. Is that right? Delphi was our lead investor.
That's right. So the idea originally was to have a DAO in the middle that will manage the token incentives and utility and the insurance fund for the exchange. So as you know, exchange of insurance funds that are there in case of a major market event that results in bankruptcy in some accounts, right? So the DAO that we planned to do originally was to manage the insurance fund. And the way it would work is that a certain percentage of the trading fees from the exchange will go to the DAO every month, every quarter, whenever, every day. And we would do a VAR analysis of the value at risk within the exchange and determine how much we needed to keep in the insurance fund, right? And any excess above that amount that we need to keep there, that excess was going to be distributed to PTF. The token name is PTF. PTF stakeholders, right? As a yield kind of in USDC, right? So because we've been quite busy with the build out of the exchange, we really haven't had the resources to focus on the DAO. But it is something that we actually built it. We got it very close to production quality, but it's not quite there yet. But we're looking at alternatives. One alternative that we're looking at right now is that instead of a DAO, you just deposit PTF on our exchange for PowerTrade, and you automatically get yield in USDC.
Oh, cool.
Based on the trading fees that the exchange is generating on a daily basis. So that's a little bit more, it's quicker for us to do that than actually go in the DAO direction. And that will give us a bit more time to get the DAO properly coded and tested and production quality.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And then just kind of a couple more questions here as we wrap up. How can someone learn more about PowerTrade and do you guys have a Twitter? Do you guys have a blog as well as your website? Where can someone find more information? And we'll link it in the
Yeah,
show
I mean,
notes.
you can we have a Twitter, PowerTrade HQ at PowerTrade HQ is our Twitter. A website, obviously, power.trade is a website, or you can contact myself or our head of sales, Bernd. And we're more than happy to give you more information, even do a call and help you on board on the platform, answer any questions you may have. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then for anyone listening, we'll also have the links in the notes. And then, so lastly, Mario, I always like to finish up episodes like this. When you're not building PowerTrade and working as CTO, what do you like to do for fun outside of work if you find the time?
I spend a lot of time in the gym, right? My early mornings lifting weights or swimming sometimes, and I enjoy playing Halo.
That's
The
awesome.
Xbox game.
Yeah,
I don't know Halo, but that's one of my favorite games.
classic.
So been playing Halo since 2001, I guess.
Oh yeah,
2000.
that's
Been
the
the last
best.
20 years.
Oh, I love it. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to play Halo
yeah.
1 all the time.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
Mario, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think it's going to be really interesting. Listeners will learn a lot. And everyone who tuned in, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.